Hi, this is Mick Abrahams with John Broughton on Retrospectives on 3SER KC Radio. He's playing you the best music you can get.
Okay, remember your first guitar?
Yep. It was a piece of wood, really. First guitar was a tennis racket, I suppose. Standing in front of a mirror, aping all the sort of impressions of Elvis Presley and Cliff Richard and God knows what else was going on at the time. And I'd taken piano lessons from my mum. My mum was a piano teacher as a small kid and got kind of disinterested in it, but still liked music. And skiffle was kind of the thing that was in at the time. When I think I was probably about 10 then, 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And they bought me this kind of £7 old beat-up guitar. Couldn't tell you what the name was. A piece of wood, maybe would describe it aptly. And I kind of learnt a few chords on it, and I think my first gig ever was at the Royal Order of Buffaloes Club, which my uncle was a member. And I went down there and played 3 songs, which was Don't You Rock Me Daddy-O, Oh Mary Don't You Weep, Don't You Moan, and Rock Island Line, I think. And I kind of repeated those over and over in sort of different formats for about nearly half an hour. And for that I got the princely sum of 1 6pence old money and a couple of pints of orange juice and a bag of crisps. How bad is that?
So when did blues become an interest for you?
I kind of immediately the rock and roll thing took hold. You know, I think the first record I ever bought was by Guy Mitchell, Cool Water. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. Yes, I do. Yes.
I'd sing it, but you'd get bored. And I think there was also, he came out with Never Felt More Like Singing the Blues.
That's right.
And I thought, that's interesting, blah, blah. So, you know, and then the next thing is I heard Bill Haley and the Comets. Cliff Richard was around at the time, and the Shadows, of course, because we were all kind of Shadows mad. That was like the next step on, you know, a fully electric band. And I started kind of playing rhythm guitar, really, and I think we did about everything the Shadows ever did, you know. And then suddenly I heard Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and you know, that took it into another dimension, and then Muddy Waters and Sonny Boy Williamson and people like that. So it kind of went on from there, really, and it kind of just progressed through the whole thing.
Was it a pretty competitive live blues scene happening over there at the time?
I don't think there was such a thing as a blues scene at that time. There was a kind of I mean, this was in the day when they used to do like the Jack Good shows, Wham and Oh Boy and stuff like that, and Lord Rockingham's 11 featuring Cherry Wayner at the Hammond organ. She used to have like this big white Hammond organ with a little poodle sat on the top of the keyboard, which was quite fun. And that was kind of the thing. So it was just in the very early development stages. Nobody really knew what blues was per se, you know. But we got the call, sort of thing. Mostly through Chuck Berry, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
People like Little Richard, because essentially they were kind of blues soul singers, and that was it, you know. So that's what really turned me on.
Now you were there for the beginnings of Jethro Tull. What were the original plans sound-wise for that band?
The original band, what?
Well, the original plan for a sound for Jethro Tull.
Well, I mean, basically, we were a blues band. I mean, really sort of just a blues band with a difference, really, that kind of did kind of blues/jazz-based music. And we had a flute player, you know, who stood on one leg. Well, he didn't start standing on one leg till we kicked the other one away from him, but, you know. In fact, I was talking to him last night, actually, and asked him how his leg was, because he's had problems with those.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. I'm doing a video with him next year, a video on the DVD of the history of Tull.
Oh, fantastic.
So he's asked me to do that, so that should be a lot of fun.
Now, the history books tell it that you weren't happy with the musical direction of the band. Is that pretty much how it was?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that's a very fair comment, and there were a couple of personal issues which, you know, like water under the bridge, long been resolved. But, you know, the band started out as a kind of broadly blues, as I say, /jazz-based band. And that's how I saw it progressing. Ian clearly saw it progressing in another way, which, you know, with absolutely every credit in the world to the man, he was totally correct, you know. I just didn't fancy going down that route because it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the management, and it caused rifts between Ian and myself. And unfortunately, I just turned around one day and said, well, not unfortunately, I mean, fortunately, because, you know, it would have done me head in to stay there. So I just said, look, you know, you get another guitar player, I'll stay until you've got another guitar player worked in so it doesn't cause anybody any grief, but I'm off, you know. And about 3 weeks after that, the manager called me in and sacked me. You can't leave this band. You must be sacked. Yeah, I mean, it was like a real... I mean, it was just pathetic, really. Yeah. But I just laughed and I said, well, I've already kind of given my notice in, Terry. You know, what's all this crap, you know? And he said, well, the boys and I have been talking. And I said, oh, bollocks, mate, you know. And that was it. So I walked.
So no regrets there at any stage?
None whatsoever, mate. No, absolutely none. You know, the money would have been nice, I guess, but money's never been my prime motivation. My prime motivation. It really hasn't, you know. So, I've always had a lack of it, so I'm always motivated to go out and work and get some, but... You know, the only time I'm ever going to be a millionaire, mate, is if those little lottery numbers come up every week, you know. That's about it.
Makes two of us. Did you remain a fan of the band, though, in later years? Did you...
In some ways, yeah. I mean, I didn't like everything that Tull did. They weren't really my kind of band, as I say, which is one of the main reasons why I left anyway, you know. But it was, you know, he's done some great things. I mean, he's a really great player and he has done some good songs over there. And there have been just one or two that I've picked out and thought, yeah, that's really nice. You know, maybe I would have liked to have played on that. But nothing that really kind of shakes my bones, like, you know, like listening to B.B. King or somebody like that. You know, not the same deal at all. Great band. Great musicians, and they're a good bunch of lads, and we all get on fine now, so, you know, all the personal crap's all long finished and all that, you know.
That's good to hear.
Well, crikey, man, I'm 58 years old, knocking 60, so what have I got to actually grind?
Yeah, that's right.
Grind at all. You know, and I've had a good career, really, you know, the things have been good for me. I'm still playing. I've just had an operation on my right hand for carpal tunnel, and I think by the end of next year I'll have to have the other one done as well. But that's kind of a mixture of guitar playing and judo and God knows what else that's done that over the years. So I've suffered with that, you know. I got all the old guys' diseases. Do you want me to list them? Do you really want to bore your listeners? Hey, no. Folks in Australia, Abrahams has got gout. He's a fat git as well.
We might save the medical report for another show, eh?
Oh, okay, mate. Yeah. Dr. Abrahams tells you he's in many rare conditions.
Was it obvious to you when you formed Blodwyn Pig that it was a blues band you're looking for, or more bluesy direction?
Again, blues / rock jazz, you know, and that's the way that the Blodwyn Pig turned out. Blodwyn Pig was really how I perceived Jethro Tull as progressing. So that was like, you know, that was definitely the right move for me.
That was the band you wanted Jethro Tull to be, basically.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, because I got Jack Lancaster in, who's a brilliant flautist and a brilliant sax player too, and you know, he kind of fitted the bill great, you know. I mean, the thing was, I didn't particularly want to be. I mean, I seem to have ended up doing everything in my life by default, because just going back a little, it was backtracking a wee bit. When I first was a rhythm guitar player in a Shadows type band, the first electric band I was ever in, called the Hustlers. We did about every number the Shadows ever did, and I'd been kind of practicing away from that, you know, kind of learning sort of Chuck Berry lead riffs and stuff like that. We already had a good lead guitar player, and then one night he threw his teddies out of his pram big time and walked off the stage and left forever. And I was left holding the baby, and then somebody said, "Hey, Abby, can you play?" And I went, "Well, I know Shazam, and I know 40 Miles of Bad Road, I know, you know, about this Chuck Berry number, and I know Long Tall Sally this one. I said, well, go on, do it. So we did. And we were playing at an American base at the time. We used to do a lot of those when we were younger anyway. And it kind of worked out okay. We worked out with a set fine. And then the next thing is the singer upped and left as well. So I got that job too. So I ended up as like kind of rhythm lead guitar player and singer. And every other band I've ever been in, I've ended up being like the man, I suppose. I don't know why. But there you go.
Who came up with the name for Blodwyn Pig?
Me. Well, no, not me. No, that's not fair, no. There was a guy called Graham Waller. Graham Waller was an old mate of ours from Luton, and we got this kind of club where we could do, you know, these odd quips and things like that, and I think Graham was much better at it than me. And he used to come along and say, like, absolutely insane things, you know, just for effect, really. And we were rehearsing the band in a small rehearsal room in Luton. And Graham just popped his head round the door, you know, and if you see this guy's face, he's a great weird-looking guy, you know. And he's got this awfully British accent. And he said, oh, hello, boys, how are you? Hello, Graham, how you doing, mate? You okay? Yeah. He said, I heard the band from downstairs and thought it sounded rather jolly. And we said, Graham, tell you what, mate, we're looking for a name, mate. Give us a name. And he did this kind of very kind of Shakespearean thespian pose and said, dear boys, he said, thou shall always be known as Blodwyn Pig, toodaloo. And we just like cracked up. Why Blodwyn Pig? And, you know, why the heck not? So that's what we did, Blodwyn Pig. So I'm told that Blodwyn Pig is a character in a Dylan Thomas poem, which I haven't read, but I do know. I mean, there's a lot of guys when we play in Wales always come. He said, he said, you must be Welsh, innit? I said, no, mate, I'm from Milton Keynes. No, boy, he said, you've got to be bloody Welsh, haven't you? He said, it's Blodwyn Pig, man. He said, I had that on my satchel at school. He said, I used to get caned for having that on there. So we get in a bit of trouble for that from the Welsh, who are lovely people and have a lovely country, but it's always damned wet, so change the climate. Because you've got New South Wales out there, don't you? That's
right, yeah. They're north of us, yeah.
Is that wet and nasty as well?
They always say they have better weather than us, but it rains up there a lot too. Was there a real feeling of freedom going into the studio for those early Blodwyn Pig albums, knowing that this was much more your band than in the past?
Yeah, I felt a lot happier, you know. Yeah. I did feel a lot happier. I mean, certainly the two albums that we did with the band, I mean, like it kind of went to pieces after the last album, but I certainly did enjoy doing those two albums. There's no question about that.
What were the circumstances of you leaving that time?
Oh, well, this is a funny one, and this is the truth, guys. I actually got sacked from my own band. Yeah, check this one out. So I had a problem with flying at the time. I just had my head was halfway down the back of my trousers, you know. And I just couldn't handle flying, so I said, no, listen, I can't handle the flying, guys. It's just doing me head in, you know. I'm having all this, and I'm having, you know, blah, blah, blah. I won't go into it, but, you know, I just didn't do it, and that was it for a while. As it happens, I'm now a pilot. Check that one out. And I was in an airborne regiment when I was in the army years ago, when I was a young'un. So, you know, a fear of flying and all that stuff don't really go together. But as I said, now I don't have any problem with it at all, and I can actually fly an aircraft. So there you go, for all you skeptics out there. But here's to answer your question. The guy, I think it was Andy, rang me up. We'd just come back from the States. I flew home anyway, and I rang him up about 3 days afterwards, and I said, when were we rehearsing? And he went, well, we are rehearsing, Mick, but he said, I've been meaning to tell you this. Jack and Ron and I have got together, and we've decided that you're holding our careers back. And I went, right. What do you mean by that? And he said, well, we've decided to carry on with Blodwyn Pig, but without you. And I went, well, yeah, okay. And I was just totally gobsmacked. And they said, yeah, we've got Barry Reynolds in playing rhythm guitar, and we've got Pete Banks in from Yes playing lead guitar, and we're going to go out and we're going to make a great job of it, you know, because you're just holding our careers back with, like, the flying thing and all the rest of it.
Right.
And you're being awkward. And I said, no, I'm not being awkward at all. I said, you know, I'm quite happy to do the occasional flight here and there, but, like, don't expect me to be flying every bloody day here, there, and everywhere, because it will just do me brains in, you know, and I don't want to do that. So anyway, they did 5 gigs after I was sacked. They did 5 gigs and they died on their arse. They just, I mean, bless them, they didn't do any good. And then 6 days later, I get a call from Andy, and he said, we've had a reconsideration. And I said a very naughty word to him, you know. So reconsideration, that's an interesting proposition. Well, it's very, very strange, but I've just formed another band called the Mick Abrahams Band, so sorry guys, I'm not available. Go forth and travel and multiply in a non-biblical fashion, if you know what I mean.
I bet they like that time over again.
Well, I mean, the weirdest thing was, I mean, if they'd have actually begged me to go back into my own band, which they just callously sort of like booted me from. I mean, it's all forgiven. Again, it's all history, but it's just fun to talk about it because it doesn't mean sort of Jack Rabbit to me now. I can care less. You know, we're all good mates again. It's not a problem. You know. But I wouldn't have gone back in if they'd have begged me on their knees. You know.
Now, your own band you formed after that, was that a pretty happy time for you?
Mick Abrahams Band was okay, yeah. We did various bits and pieces. I had different formats, different lineups. Even Jack came back into the lineup for a while. And I think the last of that era in the 70s, the last MA band was it was Walt Monahan on bass and Wilga Campbell, who now sadly is no longer with us, on drums. And Wilga used to play with Rory Gallagher originally. So, you know, it was a nice little 3-piece, and we did a couple of things. We did a live album in Madrid and a couple of bits and pieces, you know. It was fun.
Was it getting frustrating at times, perhaps, around that time, not being settled with the one band for a real extended period of time?
I mean, yeah. I mean, to answer your question honestly, I got fed up with the whole shebang. I was totally peed off with Chris List, the management. Pissed off with the agency. I'm sorry, because I suppose you better re-record this, hadn't you?
No problem.
No? So, I mean, I just got peed off with a whole lot, and I had this kind of, not a blinding light on the road to Damascus job, but I just kind of just said, screw it, I'm finished, I'm gone. And that was it. I just kind of packed up. And I thought, what's the least thing that I could possibly do that would put me the farthest away from music, and just to see how I feel about it in 6 months' time, i.e. a sabbatical, yeah? And so I went and bought myself a little Ford Prefect, a set of ladders, a bucket, and a couple of chamois, and went out washing windows with a flat cap on. And then I got a job as a swimming pool lifeguard. Within 2 months, I got made up to a supervisor. Within another month, I got made the manager. And within 3 months, I was made manager of a huge complex. And I thought, hang on, what am I doing here? And these guys were coming up to me and saying, yeah, but you used to be with Jethro Tull, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I just like it, you know, it's cool. And they said, are you playing? And I said, no, I've packed up playing and I've kind of quit. But in my heart of hearts, I hadn't quit. My guitar was up in the loft, and after about 6 months, I kind of resisted, caved in and climbed up on the ladder and got the guitar out of the loft and started playing again.
But you did put it away completely for about 6 months?
I did actually put it away completely. It was hidden in the loft for 6 months, quite purposely, to see how much I suppose it was a bit of a test of myself, really, to see if that was, you know, I just had this feeling maybe that wasn't what I was supposed to do, because I was getting so peed off and frustrated with the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the silly thing is, I mean, all the same frustrations still remain, you know, but I just deal with them perhaps in a more, maybe a more adult way. I'm still a big kid, but, you know, I can deal with all the crap that comes. It doesn't bother me in the slightest now.
Yeah.
It just washes over me, because it is absolute crap, you know.
I guess probably...
It's nothing to do with the music, is it, you know?
No, that's right. I guess looking back now, it's probably a break you had to have to get a better perspective on things now.
For sure, yeah, no question about it, mate. Yeah, I did for a whole period of time, for around 8 years, I did a variance of things. I drove a truck, I managed a swimming pool complex, I managed a leisure centre, I sold life insurance, I sold cars, I mean, and all that time I was playing really semi-professionally. I was only playing a couple of times a week. And then around about 1987, I just got the bug big time again and just said, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. So that's what I do. And that's what I'm doing now.
So I guess it was always in the back of your mind, someday eventually you'd return.
I suppose it's like being a junkie, really, isn't it? You just got to have that kind of, that fire, haven't you?
Yeah.
I've never been into drugs or anything like that, so I'm not aware of that experience. But I can probably equate it with the same, the same buzz that music gives me, because I know how I feel after or when I'm playing or after I finish playing. I think, yeah, that's great.
Did you miss the audience contact?
Yeah, of course, because part of that's like, if you are made to actually do what you do, that's part of the deal anyway. It's part of, you like to go out and I consider myself an entertainer. That's what I am primarily, and maybe I'm a guitar player and singer and songwriter second, all of that, because if my job, which I've always seen, that's one thing that I've always had a very clear perspective about, is to go out and do the best job I can possibly do and make people happy. And turn them on and give them a good time. That's what I'm getting paid for. I'm not getting paid enough for it. Nowhere near enough.
One thing that's really stood out about your work since you've come back is the emphasis on new material and original material rather than just reviving the past. Has that been important to you?
Oddly enough, I've just completed 3 albums, which will be coming out as a box set as a history of MA sometime in spring next year, I believe. And I've revisited all my stuff that I've done over the last 14 years, which has been interesting. It's been quite a turn on, even with a number called Dear Jill, which was on the first UK version of Blodwyn Pig, A Head Rings Out. I re-recorded that very simply because they used that number in Cameron Crowe's latest film, Almost Famous.
That's right.
And, there's only about 30 seconds of the song in there, but it's in there because it's like part of that time, And so to kind of revive a bit of interest, I revisited it, and I've done a really nice version of it. You'll get it in a couple of days anyway when the postman arrives, so you can have a listen and judge for yourself. But it's a nice vibe with the song, and I thought, yes, it'd be kind of nice to revisit this. And I've just been in talks with Secret Records, and they've come up with this idea of me doing this history album. So I've literally, the last couple of days, I've just finished mastering it, and it's all in the can, which is interesting.
I think I saw also that you did some live shows that covered some of the early Tull material that you did. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. We did in 1998. We went out, I got a young flute player who was probably about 6 months old when we first recorded the original album, who it doesn't look like Ian Anderson or anything like that, but he's playing, and in his voice and his attack and everything, and that attitude is very much in that vein. And I listened to him a couple of times. He was in a Jethro Tull cover band, and I listened to him and I thought, hey, this guy's cool. I thought it'd be an idea to get, the original band kind of lineup and that vibe together, because a lot of people kept asking me, saying, Mick, why don't you go out and do all this stuff, because we've seen you with Anderson a couple of times when Anderson's jumped up with Blodwyn Pig on some of these German conventions, and I jumped up with Tull and did a couple of numbers from the old stuff with them at the Apollo in London and stuff like that. And a lot of people really kind of turned on to that, and I got a lot of requests for people saying, well, why don't you re-record this, and why don't you do this, and blah, blah, blah. So I said, yeah, okay. And so I mulled the idea around for about 3 months, and I thought, yeah, okay, we're going to do this. So what I did was I did all the music from the original This Was album, plus 2 or 3 other numbers that we used to do in the original stage show from the days in the Marquee with early Tull. And it went down an absolute storm. It was wonderful. And we got some nice takes of it as well, which has been a lot of fun.
Excellent. You've
sadly I got one or two bits of stick from Ian's management company, not from Ian, but from his management company, who didn't like the idea of me going out playing the music of Jethro Tull. I said, well, look, mate, was a member. I'm still alive, so that makes me am a founder member.
Yeah.
Present tense, please, if you don't mind. And I'm quite legally entitled to do that. I certainly would not in any way want to go out as another Jethro Tull. There is only one Tull, and fair play to them, all part of their arm.
Yeah.
I'm not into that. All I wanted to do was just a representation of the time and that vibe. And clearly, a lot of people thought it was really cool. So, Yeah, but it made a bit of work for Ian's lawyers. I suppose he's got to pay them about £600 a minute to write stupid blinking letters which were pointless in the first place.
but as you said, he had no problem with it personally, did he?
He had no problem with it at all.
No.
What happened was that there were a couple of scummy promoters who thought they were being clever to try and put a few extra bums on seats. They surreptitiously put the words Mick Abrahams' Jethro Tull on the stub tickets. And quite rightfully, a couple of fans, went up the wall about it, as you would.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a bit of a complaint about it. Some of them went a bit too far over the top, and I pointed out that it wasn't my doing. And I was pointing out that Himmler made sort of similar remarks when he was asked if he had any responsibility for what happened in Germany all that years ago. But don't put this on the radio. Cut this bit out.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I got the kick in the arse for having the responsibility of it when it was something that was without my knowledge and without my control as well. So, Yabu sucks. What can I tell you?
You mentioned you did do a guest spot with Jethro Tull recently. How did that feel getting back on stage with the band again?
Oh, it was great fun.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't recently. It was about 4 years ago.
Oh, that long?
Oh yeah, it was. They did a couple of nights at the Apollo at Hammersmith in London, and he asked me up for the first night, and it went down so well. He said, "Are you doing anything tomorrow night?" And I said, "As it happens, no." So he said, "All right, just leave your gear there and come tomorrow night as well." So I said, "Oh, it means I passed the audition again." He said, "Yeah, I suppose so." But it was great. It was good fun, And Clive was up with me as well. Clive Bunker, the original drummer.
Yep.
So. Because he lives just down the road from me, we're still good pals. We see each other now and then, and I comment on his baldness, and he comments on my fatness. There you go. How old are you, John?
Just done the 40.
Just done a 40. You ain't a baby yet.
Oh, thanks.
What are you doing? What are you doing talking to an old fart like me, sir?
Now you've got a fair whack of your back catalogue out there on CD now too.
There's quite a lot of stuff here.
That's terrific.
all the Blod stuff. The first album, My Head Rings Out. The second one, Getting to This. The first Mick Abrahams Band, A Musical Evening With. The second Mick Abrahams Band. These are all on Chrysalis. That was called At Last, which is probably the only Mick Abrahams Band I've never really thought was my best work. Didn't enjoy that. It was all right at the time, but reflecting on it, maybe I want to tune it. Who knows? Wasn't my favourite piece of work anyway.
Has that been beneficial, I guess, in attracting a new generation of fans too, getting that stuff out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is the nice thing. We get guys who are like around about anywhere between kind of 45 up to 60. Come to the gigs and they bring their kids and and even the grandchildren now. So it's quite cool.
You got your own label happening there as well with your more recent stuff?
Oh, with my label, Squirrel Music, yeah. But I mean that's basically I sell stuff off of my website, the stuff that's still catalogued to myself, and it's only kind of a fan thing. It's not a big business spinner or anything like that, but it enables the fans to get some stuff that they've not previously got or couldn't get anywhere else, So you can give them the Earl if you like, John.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's squirrelmusic.com, isn't it?
That's the one, mate.
Yeah. Now, I guess it saves you personally having to deal with record companies too, which would be nice.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean that way I'm not conning anybody out of any money, and I don't have to do a mound of paperwork, and you know, it's all my own work, so all homegrown cottage industry. Because I have my own studio here at home, so you know, there's a lot of stuff I can do.
What's the current lineup of your band?
Currently, I'm using a guy called John Gordon on bass, John Guinness Gordon. Don't know why they call him Guinness, because he drinks wine as there, but never mind. And an old-time pal, a guy called Graham Walker, doing drums. And Graham's done all the Gary Moore albums and stuff like that, but he's been a member of the Bloods now for about, 14-odd years, I think.
Oh, wow.
And occasionally, you know, it depends on where we are and what we go out. Sometimes I go out as the Mick Abrahams Band, sometimes we go out as Blodwyn Pig. When we go out as Blodwyn Pig, I usually have a guy called Nick Payne playing sax and harmonica, who's a wonderful musician. He's currently working with Lonnie Donegan and Bill Wyman's Rhythm Kings.
Oh, yes.
But he's been in and out of the Bloods for a long time. Occasionally we use a keyboard player called Mick Parker. Just varies, you know, as opposed to what money we can get. I mean, I know it sounds dreadfully sort of mercenary, but I mean, you know, if you go out only for a few £100 or whatever it is, you can't afford to pay like half a dozen musicians, you know?
Yeah, true. And just before we wind up, Mick, what's your golden rule to survival in the music business?
Keep a great sense of humour, pal.
You've certainly done that.
Sense of humour. That was what my Uncle Jim told me when I married my missus about 28 years ago. He said, always keep your sense of humour, son, and you'll survive. And for some reason, it seems to have happened.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, Mick, thanks for your time. It's been great fun speaking to you.
It's my pleasure, mate, and lots of joy to all you people out there in Australia. I'd love to come and visit you someday.
Oh, look, we'd love to get you down here. We've got a pretty healthy blues festival circuit down here. You'd slot in beautifully.
Oh, well, just tell me when, mate. Get some people in touch. You got my numbers, you got my L. Go for it, mate.
No worries, I'll put some feelers out for you.
All right, bud.
Good on you, Mick.
You take care, mate.
You too. We'll hopefully we'll see you down here sometime soon.
All right, mate.
Okay, take care.
Cheers, man.
Bye-bye.